In this video, you'll learn how to produce a simple Gantt chart in Microsoft Excel, building it from scratch using a work breakdown structure as the base. I'll show you step by step via screen share. In the video, I'll briefly describe what a Gantt chart is and why we use it. As the base is a work breakdown structure, I'll do a very quick WBS refresher and use the work breakdown structure as the basis for building a simple Gantt chart from a blank Microsoft Excel document. As mentioned, I'll take you through step by step. If you are building a Gantt chart, you will need your own work breakdown structure, at least in a draft format. A Gantt chart is a project schedule with a bar chart that shows the timeline and relationships between activities and time. It's a visual and graphical representation of the schedule that makes the schedule easier to understand. Zooming in, we can see how these different tasks relate to each other. Notice the arrows. There is also a milestone indicated here with a diamond. In this case, it's an approval decision, a go-no-go decision. A Gantt chart can also be used to show the resources such as people and equipment needed for each task. This can help control costs. You can also include a column to show % complete for tracking when the project is in the implementation or execution phase. The name Gantt chart comes from the individual who made it popular, Henry Gantt. It uses a work breakdown structure as the basis for scheduling, and zooming in we can see the work breakdown structure used for this project, and it follows a simple project life cycle. Project initiation activities are at the top, there are planning activities, and there are also execution activities and subtasks, followed by project closing activities. As the work breakdown structure is the basis, let's have a quick refresh. A WBS is actually the basis for all planning on a waterfall or plan-driven project. It defines the total scope of the project, answering, well, what do we actually need to do? It's hierarchical in nature and organised around deliverables and tasks. It's essentially a to-do list. I've produced a more detailed video describing how to create a work breakdown structure. Here is the WBS that was shown in that previous video. It's a simple house renovation with 4 deliverables across the top. There's one for the kitchen, main bathroom, ensuite, and painting the exterior of the house. Note that the work breakdown structure should be coded to reduce confusion, and this coding is taken into the Gantt chart. So at the top we can see 1.1 for update kitchen, followed by 1.2 for update main bathroom, 1.3 for the ensuite, and 1.4 for the house exterior. Underneath the kitchen, we can see the first main work package is to design the kitchen, and that's coded as 1.1.1. Underneath that is 1.1.2, renovate kitchen, and 1.1.3, kitchen finishing or finalising the kitchen. We'll now take this work breakdown structure and create a Gantt chart. I've created a new Excel workbook. You'll want to save yours as a Gantt chart. Go to File and Save As in order to save the file. First, I will create the columns for my Gantt chart. So the first column is column A, and that will have my WBS coding. In column B will be the description for the deliverables or tasks or work packages. Then is the start date and end date for each task or deliverable. In column E is the duration. In column F we'll show predecessors. Predecessors are used to show the relationship between the tasks and to show dependencies. These can help to build a network diagram, or you may have already built a network diagram or PERT chart and you'll just input that information into column F. In column G, I'm going to provide a spot for resources that could be human or equipment, and I'm going to add in a % complete because I want to use this to do some tracking when I'm in implementation phase. We can then input the time frame. So I'm going to keep this really simple and go week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, and so forth. Now I've kept my weeks very simple here, but you could have them as days, as in 7 days to make a week. You could put dates in here. You can be a lot more specific. You can customize this any way you like, but I've decided to keep it simple for this demonstration today. The other thing is some of these things are hard to read, so you can pick up these little arrows and drag. That will bring them out, or you can double click. So just hover over the line, double click, and that will automatically push out the width of the cells. So you can see me doing that there. So we've got our first row here, and I usually like to make this bold so that it stands out. You may also decide to put in some sort of color coding if you want to. It's completely up to you. I think I'm going to keep mine basic. Now, to complete your Gantt chart, you need to follow a specific order. In step 1, we're going to complete columns A and B, which is the work breakdown structure code and the description. In step 2, we'll record the durations for each task. Once we have the durations, we will then define the predecessors for each task to show the relationships. With those two done, it's far easier to then define or determine the start date and end date for each task. We'll do the rest of the timeline towards the end of the video. So I've snipped the work breakdown structure and I'm just going to paste it here. This will help me to remember what my different WBS items are. So the first WBS item we need to be thinking of is the project as a whole. So that would be WBS code 1. Now it may default here just to the number 1. If we go up here to increase decimal and press that once, that will give us the level of coding we're looking for there. The description is house renovation because it's the completed project. Just remember here you can double click to expand the cell. So under house renovation, the first deliverable is 1.1 update kitchen. So let's add that. Under that is 1.1.1 design kitchen. And over at the side, we can see some formatting errors here. You can actually collect the whole column and apply formatting just to keep it nice and consistent. So design kitchen is here. Now at this point, you may decide that you want to show the lower level activities under this work package. In fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to put in 1.1.1.1 and my first task will be kitchen consultation, because I want to get some information, I want to do some research and make sure I design my kitchen well. After that, 1.1.1.2, I'm then going to design the kitchen. So I'm going to come up with some sort of a design. It will tell me what appliances I might want and how it's going to be configured, the layout and so forth. Once I've done the kitchen design, I might put a special entry here to finalize the kitchen, and this may even be taken as a milestone as well, but I'm just going to put it as a task here. So this is telling me that in order to design the kitchen, these 3 things need to be done, and design kitchen will only be complete or considered complete if these 3 things have been completed. So I'm pretty happy there, and I'm ready to move on to the next one, 1.1.2, which is renovate kitchen. Once again, I think there's an extra couple of steps here. So the first one that I'm going to put is to demolish the existing kitchen. So I've got to clear that out, get rid of it, throw everything away, ready to install the new kitchen. And in fact, that's going to be my next task. 1.1.2.2 will be install new kitchen. I think they're the main 2 tasks there. You may think of other things, but again, I'm going to keep this fairly simple for us today. 1.1.3 is kitchen finishing. And under this step, 1.1.3.1, the first thing I'm going to do is testing and inspecting that finalized kitchen. Make sure everything works, everything's fine. And 1.1.3.2, I'm going to do a site cleanup of the kitchen, just to make sure everything's neat and tidy and perfect. Now you might want to do other things like have a milestone for kitchen acceptance to show that it's all approved and the kitchen is officially complete. Again, I'm going to keep mine really simple. So that's all of the kitchen completed in my work breakdown structure here, getting ready to build my schedule. The next one is update the bathroom. I'm just going to start this one off, but I'm not going to do all of it because I think you should get the idea now. So update main bathroom, and following my procedure here, 1.2.1 would then be design bathroom. And you would just keep going down, etc., etc., all the way, just doing columns A and B. And when they're fully completed, we're ready for the next part of our Gantt chart. So the next thing that I like to do once everything's in is format it a little bit, just to make things stand out. So the main project here is a house renovation. I'm actually going to lift that up to a size 13 and make it bold, so I know that this is the project that I'm working on nice and clearly. Updating the kitchen is then a major deliverable. I'm going to change that up to a size 12 and also bold that. Then I'm going to pick up each of the work packages and make those bold. So this just helps me to understand this structure a little bit better. Down the bottom we've got update main bathroom. Again, I'm going to change that to a 12 and a bold because it's the same level as updating the kitchen, and I'm going to change this one to a bold as well, and you would do that all the way through. The other thing you can do in this and Gantt charting software is you might decide to color code. So I could change all of the things related to the kitchen to another color just so it's a lot easier for me to pick up that I'm working on the kitchen deliverable. And you might do, for example, the bathroom in another color just to make sure that they're different and you can pick up where you are when you're talking to stakeholders or managing your Gantt chart. But for today, I'm going to get rid of that. I just think I thought I would show you that you can actually do that. So the next step is we're going to work on the duration, and when you build the duration, either this will be given to you or you will need to do some estimating, and I have produced a separate video on estimation techniques and how to do it. But I'm going to do some estimating today, and I'm going to say that consulting on the kitchen, learning about it, figuring it out, that's going to take 2 weeks to talk to people, do some research. Designing the kitchen, I think, is going to be about the same. I'm going to get a designer to help me. And then to finalize the kitchen, make a clear decision on what I want, I'm going to say that's 1 week there. Then to demolish the kitchen, I'm also going to say that's going to take about a week. And installing the new kitchen, I'm also going to say is a week. I'm going to assume it's quite a small kitchen. We then need to do all the testing and inspecting and fixing anything if we need to. I'm also going to make that a week to make it easy. And the site cleanup, you know what, let's make that a week as well. But you could have different time frames. You could have 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, whatever you like. This is just my durations that I've put in here. Notice that we don't do any durations for the top level. We're working from the bottom level to get this done. So the next task is to complete column F. So here we need to think about the order of things, or what things could be done at the same time as other things. So you might have some tasks that need to start at the same time or finish at the same time, or one task may need to follow another, and the predecessor column is where you define that. So the first question to ask is kitchen consultation. Does anything need to occur before that task? In this instance, no, there are no predecessors. It's not dependent on anything. Technically, I could start that on the first day. Well, what about design the kitchen? Well, actually, we can't design the kitchen until we've done the consultation. So in this instance, there's a dependent relationship here. So I'm going to copy 1.1.1.1 because that's a predecessor to designing the kitchen. So I have to do the consultation first, and this says that once the consultation is done, then I can design the kitchen. And same here with doing the final design and sign-offs. I have to do the initial design first here. So I'm going to copy that and paste it there. So it's showing a few relationships now. Demolishing the existing kitchen. Well, what needs to be done before that can be done? Well, technically nothing. We don't need to do consultation or anything, presuming it's a old kitchen and it's all got to go, technically we could start that on the first day. There's no predecessor. Installing the new kitchen though is going to depend on a couple of things. First of all, we need to make sure we've finalised the kitchen design. We need to know what it is we're going to install. So I'm going to paste that in here. The second thing is everything needs to be demolished and removed or we can't install that new kitchen. So actually 1.1.2.1 is also a predecessor. So this particular task here has two predecessors. Now you might have lots of other tasks that you may want to show under installing the kitchen. It could be about procurement and receiving goods or contracting a cabinet maker or tiler or different things. As we did with these subtasks, you could expand this out a little bit further if you wanted to. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it simple for today. Now we're on to testing and inspecting the kitchen. Well, we're not going to do that until it's fully installed. So we have another predecessor here telling us that 1.1.2.2 needs to come before the testing. And lastly, cleaning everything up, that can only be done once all that inspection and everything's complete as well. Now, you may decide, for example, that these two things get done together and you might just decide that this has a start-to-start relationship with this one. That's perfectly fine, but for our purposes, I'm going to leave this simple like that. So now that we've completed column F, it's really simple to complete columns C and D. So first of all, I'm going to state, and it would be somewhere in some document, that my project has a start date of the 1st of March of whatever year that this is going to be done in. So there's my start date. We don't know the end date, and in fact, we won't know that until this Gantt chart is complete, but we do know the start date. So the first question is, when can we start the kitchen consultation? Well, we already said that could start on day 1. So let's put that in there. And the end date, well, that's in 2 weeks. So we can very simply figure that one out. And then we've said that the kitchen designing the kitchen is dependent on finishing the kitchen consultation. So this is easy. We can start this the next day. See, the 14th, and we're starting on the 15th with the design. Again, this is going to take us 2 weeks, which will take us up to the 28th of March. Again, we've said here there's a dependency, so finalising the kitchen will need to start here on the 29th of March. And again, that's going to take a week, which means it will finish on the 5th of April. So now we know that this kitchen design portion will start on the 1st and it will finish on the 5th of April. Now we will still leave this blank. We'll finish these ones at the end. At the moment, we'll keep going through these bottom levels. So demolishing the kitchen, we said, could start on day 1. So I'm going to put in there our start date. And it's going to take a week, so that's around the 7th of the 3rd that should be done. So we're now down to installing the new kitchen, and remember it had 2 dependencies and we need to take the latest one, so finalising the kitchen. So we finalised on the 5th, that means we could start this one on the 6th. Now we can't use this date because finalisation activities would still be going on, remembering this has 2 dependencies or 2 predecessors. So here, 1 week along, let's figure that out. It's going to finish on the 13th. And here we have another dependency. So this means that this one has to start after that one's finished. So on the 14th. It's going to take a week, which will bring it to the 21st. And again, this one's going to need to start, it says here, after this one's finished. So the 22nd of the 4th. And it will finish in a week's time. Okay, so here we've got a lot of information and we can start working to this top level now. So this is telling us that the design kitchen phase can start here and it will be finished on the 5th. And then down here, this one is going to start on the 1st. We know that because it says it here. And we're going to finish on the 13th. And then the last one here we can see starts on the 14th and it finishes here on the 29th. So now that we know this, we can do the start date and end date for the entire update of the kitchen. So our start date is really day 1 of the project and our end date is all the way down here, 29th of the 4th. And there we have it. So this same process obviously would apply to the whole of the work breakdown structure. You would just work through each column just in that order that I've given you. But let's now have a look at how we turn this into more of a Gantt chart. So I'm just going to move my work breakdown structure out of the way so I can show you this. So here, one of the simple ways to do it is just through color coding. So this first activity is going to last the first 2 weeks, and I can change the color there to show those 2 weeks I'm working on kitchen consultation. The next 2 weeks, according to this, I'm working on designing that kitchen up, and then finalizing the kitchen happens straight after that. So already we can kind of see the dependencies, and if this was in software, there would be little arrows showing how these sort of link together. Down the bottom here, we've got demolish the existing kitchen taking a week, and we've actually scheduled this in the first week at the moment. So I'm going to put that there. And then installing the new kitchen takes a week, but it is actually dependent on this one up here. So I'm going to put that here. So what we can immediately see is that we've actually got some float or some slack here. In fact, it looks like there's 4 weeks. I'm just going to highlight that. And we could technically start the kitchen demolition in any of these 4 weeks. We just need to make sure it's fully completed before installation happens. So we might look at our resources and decide when is the best week to do that. I'm just going to change that to green. There's a whole bunch of slack there. But already you can start to see a bit of a critical path. This up the top here and this are all on the critical path. Okay, but this one is definitely not. We could shuffle that around. It doesn't actually affect anything. So down to testing and inspecting. Well, again, that happens afterwards. So that's going to go here. And lastly, we're going to do the site cleanup at the end. So once again, we should be able to appreciate, and I'll change it to red now, that we have quite a clear critical path here, a very simple one associated with this kitchen. Now, if I produce the entire Gantt chart, this may change because it's possible that the kitchen altogether actually isn't on the critical path. But this is just to demonstrate how you can figure out a critical path based on how different activities are connected to each other. I'm just going to change that now back to our peach color, just to indicate that, well, at this point, we don't really know what the critical path is. If you're using software like Microsoft Project, it will actually tell you all of this. And so the last thing you might like to do is show the overall duration of things. So this is going across the first 5 weeks. So I might, for example, want to color that blue just to show that that's all the kitchen design stuff happening. And this one is going a little bit further along. And the last one, it's really happening right at the end there. That's across that work package. Updating the kitchen, again, if you wanted to show the entire span of that, you might want to do it like that to show that it goes all the way across. As I mentioned, we can't really do much more with the duration or the start and end date for the entire project, as we would need to have put this entire work breakdown structure into Excel first. But hopefully that will give you a good idea of how to build the Gantt chart. Now on my template, I've also included resources. So I could have a certain project manager up here looking after the entire project. I might name that project manager. I could have different people responsible here. If I want to, I might even have a builder looking after the renovation. I might have a specialist come in to do all of the different finishing activities here. So this gives you a lot of flexibility to put your resources in. You could put equipment or consumables in this column as well if you want to, and that would help you to figure out your costs as well. You could figure out the hourly rate of the people used on this schedule, and that would give you some cost information. Column H in planning would be blank because we haven't done anything yet. But for example, if we were in week 3 now, I could say I'm 100% complete on this part of the project. And if I wanted to, I could even change that, for example, to a bright green to show that's all been finished. It just gives you an opportunity to turn this into a tracking tool. So hopefully you can now appreciate how to produce a Gantt chart from scratch using Microsoft Excel and using the work breakdown structure as the base. It should always be the base. However, there are templates available you may be able to source through the internet, and I'll show you just one. On this template, we have the ID, the WBS ID here. We have activities and tasks. That's all from the work breakdown structure. We then have an area for resources and stakeholders. They're all listed across the top. Start date, end date, the duration, % complete, and then the timeline in a little bit more detail compared to the one I just used. So one of the special things with this one is you can easily indicate who's working on what part of the project, and the duration is automatically programmed based, in this case, on when you put the start and end date in. So that's a little bit different. And if I change this to 100% complete, in this case, it will automatically change this to green. So you may find some suitable templates out there. Otherwise, as I've shown, it's quite simple to make one of these yourselves. Good luck with your Gantt charting.